Thank you, sir. All right, I'd like to call to order the March 27th Long Hill Township Committee meeting. Everybody rise, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Committeeman Maringolo.
Here.
Committeeman Ray.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Pacercia.
Present.
Mayor Dorsey.
Here. All right, liaison reports. Bruce, you're on the short side of the room, so you have anything?
I was at LAPC meeting last week. They are updating some of their annual plans, all the different department heads, and they'll be rolled up into the overall master OEM plan. That's it.
Thank you. Brendan.
No report.
Guy.
Just real quickly, the Shade Tree Commission has pointed this out each year in succession. We've never really addressed it. Because it is a commission, the state requires a paid employee of the township to take what is called core training. It's a relatively painless course it takes like between 9 and 4. I think the next one is in October. I spoke with Shane. Shane's willing to do it. It's like $65. It's nothing. And then there was a recommendation that somebody maybe from DPW take it as well, but it doesn't matter. We just need one person to do it.
If I can, we did have somebody from DPW, it's $50. We did have somebody signed up,
Okay.
but there was a mistake in the date, so they missed it. So they were gonna go in the fall. Randy-
Okay, so
Randy
that'll be
did.
taken care of?
Oh, Randy's,
Perfect.
okay, good.
Yeah.
So Randy will go in the
Perfect,
fall.
perfect.
Yeah.
The other thing,
Wait, Randy's a contractor.
No, Randy Wotek.
Oh, I'm sorry.
DPW.
I'm sorry.
He's the
I'm sorry.
foreman now?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
this is one.
so good, I'm just glad that'll be taken care of. I spoke with the owner of ShopRite today. The good news is the long-awaited milling and paving of the entire ShopRite parking lot will begin Monday, weather permitting. So April 1st, they anticipate it will take 2 weeks, again, weather permitting.
That's the ShopRite committee?
They're well aware of the requirement for some kind of fence, stockered fence or whatever it is, behind ShopRite. They're going to landscape it, trees, bushes, et cetera, et cetera. I did speak with them because a resident did call me concerned about handicap parking. And of course, there are state laws, et cetera. I imagine, Nancy, you're more familiar with that, and Jack, than I am. But they're going to comply with all regulations, et cetera. So that's something that we have spoken about for 2 years now, and it will begin on Monday. That's it.
Mayor, if I
Go ahead.
could, I have a police liaison report. The post and checks for school activity, 651 to date. 12 individuals have been arrested in the township. 1,041 vehicle stops have been made, and the self-initiated and calls for service are up to 5,382. So you have a very busy police department. Thankfully, no major incidents since the last report. Just from the community policing perspective, Long Hill PBA is hosting the pro wrestling at the Long Hill Community Centre on Saturday, April 6th. It's a great event, and I've myself and Guy have attended it several times. April 6th, the doors open at 6, and tickets are available at the door. The other thing is not to miss out on this year's fishing derby. Long Hill PBA again is hosting a fishing derby April 20th. And I'm sure the mayor will give some details about that in the announcements. Just special requests from the police department. This is the time of year that the police department typically receives a number of complaints about scams and solicitation complaints. So please complete the application and take advantage of the No Knock initiative. Do not accept unsolicited offers for home repair, paving and seal coating, or any other services. Contact the Long Hill Police should anyone encounter contractors. If the deal is too good to be true, it probably is. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have, aside from the DPW report, they're getting the lake ready for the annual fishing derby. And I'm sure they're doing potholes as fast as they can. But other than that, there's nothing else to report. All right, moving along. Let's see, we have appointments. Oh, sorry, Nancy, administrator's report.
Thank you. The county advises today that there are 2 Long Hill roads on the 2019 paving schedule. 1.4 miles of New Vernon Road from Myersville Road to the Township line, and 0.6 of a mile of Division Avenue from Valley Road to Long Hill Road. And then on the 2020 tentative schedule, because it's always subject to change, but 0.4 of a mile of Long Hill Road from Division Avenue to Basking Ridge Road will be paved.
Can I ask a question regarding the county paving? And Chief Gallo, I was going to give you a call about it. For whatever reason, the section, and I'm sure you're already aware, from Myersville Circle going west, which was done, that section all the way up to Long Hill Road was done, I think, in 2014. For whatever reason, it's starting to completely break down. Now, I don't know if that's something we have to contact the county about, but there's no way that road is going to make it to its 10-year life or whatever it is.
Yeah, I already contacted them because the road was pretty bad in one spot, which we now respond, but it's not at all.
I mean, why does a road like that break down? Is that maybe was faulty?
It could be the time of year, the weather. And sometimes it is faulty here, but usually they have inspectors on site. So,
But thank you, you've already contacted them. Thank you.
well, I'll reach out again and see if they're going to address it.
Because yes, they put a little patch down there and it's all gone, right? Within 2 weeks, it's all gone. Thank you.
Morristown Road paving project is out to bid. The bids are due April 10th, so that will start probably over the summer, early summer. The Cannon Park Trail Grant agreement was just signed today. You signed it?
Monday, Tuesday, it was mailed
Oh,
out
right, you
yesterday.
signed it the other day, right.
Right.
That will go out to bid within the month, and work probably won't begin until the fall. And the Valley Mountain Traffic Signal, you just signed the shared service agreement.
That I just did.
Right. And when it's countersigned by the county, that'll go out to bid, so work on that will start shortly.
Excellent.
Is that all you have?
That's all.
All right, then we have appointments of Matthew Carasino to the CAC for till December 31st, 2021.
Motion.
I motion to approve Mr. Carasino's appointment to the CAC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on, consent agenda resolutions. Anybody, it's 19-102 through 19-117.
117.
Oh, is there anything that needs to be, before I get into it, anything needs to be pulled out or discussed? I did want to talk about, I think it's 19-110, no, 19-112, Nancy? It's on page 7,
Yes.
for those of you keeping score at home. It says Little Explorer Summer Preschool Camp. It's a red line, says $150 per week. However, it was redlined at $80 a week. That should have been $100 per week, and it's moving up to $150 per week. Is that accurate?
Correct.
All right, now my next question is, and I had this question is, I understand obviously the minimum wage was going up. So does these fees reflect the new minimum wage?
Well, they're part of the reason for the increase in the fees. Some of them are programs that are not performing well. Some of them are where we needed new employees. The Little Explorers, for example, we added a half a day to the schedule, so the kids will be going a half a day longer. And the facility rental increased there, and we did have to add some additional employees. So that's one of the reasons. Another overall reason for the overall increases is because the new minimum wage is going to require some employees to get increases. But there are some employees who already make up for that. So yeah, we'll give a report to the governing body of what the minimum wage, what the impact has been on the increase in minimum wage. But that's part of the reason for this, but there are a lot of other extraneous factors,
Got it.
reasons for the increases.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, move.
Move
There you go.
Resolution 19-102 through 19-117 as stated in the agenda.
Second?
Minimum Rangelo?
Yes.
Minimum Ray?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lukowski?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. How do you want to handle Megan? Should we call her at a certain time?
Yeah, I told her we'd probably be calling her between 7:45 and 8, so she's at the end.
All right, well, we'll start, this, okay. So for the easiest one on here, doesn't require a lot, is the fee
Well,
waiver.
then you skipped one. Oh, that
No,
was
no.
on the discussion?
Discussion, the easiest one, the first one is the fee waiver for the first aid squad generator installation.
They're putting in a new generator and they need fire, plumbing, and electrical inspections. So, because they're a nonprofit, because they, provide a service to the municipality, we are just formally requesting a fee waiver from the construction, permit fee.
Does anybody have an issue with that?
Nope.
Nope. All right.
Somebody makes a motion to.
Yeah, motion.
Oh, motion to waive the fees for the first aid squad generator installation.
Second.
No problem.
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the BPU letter of support for PSE&G Clean Energy Future Program. Now, at least I can give you some background. About 3 weeks ago? Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, Nancy and I met with the PSE&G rep for our area. His name was, Everton Scott?
Yeah.
So, in the midst of, there had to be some reason for the meeting. And then he pulls this letter out for us that he wants us to support some program they're doing. And it sounded good on paper, it was some clean energy initiative. However, I pick up the paper on Sunday, and there's a whole article in there about how they want to raise rates by $900 million, and the BPU is, I guess the BPU is pushing back on them for raising $900 million in rates for some pipelines and other things they want to install. So I'm guessing, I think probably trying to put two and two together here is probably no coincidence why he met with us at that point in time and very aggressive to have us sign this letter of support for some program they're doing. So that's just my opinion, unless there's something I'm missing.
No, I mean, he wanted to meet your.
Oh, yeah,
You're a
yes.
new mayor and he's a government affairs person, so he wanted to meet with you just for an introduction, but he did, he was pretty aggressive about hoping that you'd support this letter. And, I mean, it is for clean energy, but as it said in the paper, it would result in some sort of rate increase for the ratepayers, so.
So the issue is, do we want to sign on to this letter? I don't remember who signed it. It wasn't that many, I guess, municipal entities that signed it. That was on that point a month and a half ago, or a month
Yeah,
ago.
there weren't that many.
So I'm guessing that's why he wanted us to sign it. I mean, I can't say 100%, but does anybody have any opinion one way or another if we should sign this letter?
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. If we sign a letter, what are we supporting?
That's a good question. I really don't know. It's,
Look, you're supporting, the letter was in your packet, you're supporting, PSCG's
Green
movement
energy.
towards green, energy initiatives.
but I'm guessing, I think a lot of that has to do with the $900 million they want to
Yeah.
generate through the, get rate raises from the BPU.
Is that why it's green? Because of the money? Or-
That's what it looks like. It's like Mike Pence.
But at this point, it's like a moral support kind of thing.
Yes.
We're not agreeing to any,
No, we're not laying out any money. There's nothing we have to, they just want to basically put, Long Hill Township supports this initiative. That's all it is.
But that might
And
be
BP's
persuasive
I'm
to
sorry.
BP. That might be persuasive to BPU, right? That's why they want us.
Oh, because we're such big players in the BPU business.
No, but I mean, the more
Yes, of
towns
course.
that you have,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's, like I said, that's my
Yeah.
circumstantial evidence that I've
when
putting together
did
so
he
far.
need an answer by?
I don't know that there's they'll be going before the BPU at some point.
To Mac's point, I'd rather just, I want to try to understand. I want to read what was about the $900 million.
That article, I think, I left that in the office, didn't I? Yeah, it was in the Ledger on Sunday.
Well, that's not just
No.
from this program, that's from other, like pipeline programs and others, that was what they were referring
Mhm.
to for the amount of money they're talking.
I mean, I shouldn't speak for everybody. Do I support clean energy? Yes, but what does that mean?
Bless you.
Bless you.
Well, that's what I
It's,
think.
it's so catch-all.
Yeah, I think you got to kind of marry the two together. I don't think they're independent of each other. I don't think it's a coincidence that he kept asking. When he first proposed it, it was almost like, hey, do you want to support us on this letter? It's for green energy. She's like, yeah, it sounds good. Then then he was aggressive, like, hey, would you guys discuss it yet? Like 2 or 3 emails, discuss it yet? We want an answer. But considering we weren't signing a contract to do anything, that would got I got suspicious. And then all of a sudden, there's an article in the Ledger about them wanting to raise rates by get approved for a $900 million rate raise. So my spidey sense goes up, and something looks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
Since it's not necessary to sign it so quickly,
No.
regardless of the fact that and I know Everton, but the fact that he kept asking means I'd rather just wait a meeting. And
I have no
We could
problem
get
with
some
that.
more, I could ask him for some more information if you want.
That's
that's my
perfectly fine.
opinion.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I agree. If there's no rush on it, why do it? I'd rather find out a little bit more.
All right, then Bruce, you agree with that?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. All right, so
Okay,
now,
Megan.
yeah, we can get Megan on the phone. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call Megan Sardor. She's the attorney that's assisting us with the sewer RFP or RFB and proposal.
Bruce, I mean, Brendan, is there any truth to the rumor that you will be wrestling Doink
Doink, the
on
clown's
April
coming?
6th?
Oh, now you've ruined it.
Except he's doink.
Under the name the Scottish Wonder Boy.
I think Doink is dead.
Yeah, I think
Serious,
he died.
he
Yeah,
died.
he died.
He's going to be wrestling King Kong.
It's just heartbreaking.
Doink was our favorite
Hi,
wrestler.
Megan.
Just because of his name.
All right, you are on speakerphone.
Hello, you on the air.
Let's pull it close to the mic.
Yeah.
Is that...
And if you, Megan, if you can't hear something that's being said, let me know and I will repeat it. If you think you're missing something. Can you hear me?
We have a bad connection. Can you guys hear me okay?
Here, I'm gonna put the volume all the way up. How's
You
that?
had to put the microphone
Okay.
wide.
Yeah,
All right, try it that way.
absolutely. The court needs it too. They probably use an interpreter sometimes.
Megan, can you say something?
Language line.
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, and you're on.
Okay.
Yes, you picked it up on. Thank you, Megan. Nancy, go ahead.
Okay, so Megan, as you know, we have the draft RFB, the governing body has the draft RFB, and at the last meeting, some questions came up. The committee members had some questions about what should be in the final draft, so we asked you to, take the call tonight so that they could have their questions answered, and then, once they're all answered, you would presumably send the draft to the comptroller's office, just so that the committee knows there were probably about 10 or so administrative type questions that Megan had asked. And I believe that we gave you all those answers, correct, Megan?
Yes, we have everything we need on those questions.
Okay, so after the committee has their answer, I think that she'll be ready to go. There's no vote necessary or anything, but Megan's just here on the phone so that all of your questions can be answered. So, may I turn over to you?
Who wants Bruce? Brendan, you start. We'll go from my right to my left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just had a question, Megan, on the section 8.3 where they talked about the seniors rate. The rates would be set for 2 years and then the 3 years. One thing I was wondering whether we wanted to suggest is that we would keep the rate set at 2018 level for 5 years. And then the other thing, Victor Verleza, a resident, had come about 2 meetings ago, and he had made the suggestion that perhaps it would be good to freeze rates for seniors. So once a person reached 60 or 65 years of age, the rate would be frozen while they lived in the town. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on those 2 proposals, Megan.
Yes, Brendan, so I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but I think your question is about the senior discount program and that requirement in the RFB. And what we did last time, and if you remember in 2017, is we required the bidder to essentially extend that senior program permanently. And when the bid came back from New Jersey American Water, they agreed to extend the senior citizen program, the discount program, but only for existing seniors at the time of closing. And they said that it was hard to price in the bid without knowing how many more eligible seniors there would be in the future. So at the time, the township was amenable to accepting their bid as it was. And so this time around, we structured it to require just that the buyer will honor the senior discount program for seniors that are currently enrolled in the program at the time of closing. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, because I couldn't quite hear everything you were saying, but does that address your concern at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's I guess the one question I would have is, can we actually freeze rates for seniors so that as soon as a resident reaches 65 years of age, we can freeze the rate, as was
Did you get that,
suggested
Megan?
by a resident?
Yeah, can we freeze the rate for seniors?
Yeah, as they hit 60 or 65, can you freeze the rate?
Right now, it's 65.
I mean, it's something that we can definitely put in the RFP up front as a requirement, and then we can let the vendor community come back, because that's something I'm not sure. They're regulated by the BPU, so I'm not sure if that's a requirement that's permitted that the BPU would approve. It may or may not be, and what we can do is put it in the RFP if the township committee would like to do that, and then there's that question and answer period where they can come back and push back and say, this is impossible, we can't agree to this, or they may be okay with it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Megan. And one other question, and that was just whenever it comes to the improvements, we'd given them a period of 5 years, and that was from last a carryover from the last RFP. And I'm wondering now that 2 years has elapsed, whether we should make that 3 years, because we're under an agreement now with Fair Share, where we had made some commitments to them.
Did you get that, Megan?
With the capital improvements, which ones are you talking about? To lift the sewer ban or to connect the 95% of the town?
It was really they were really connected to the lift in the sewer ban.
Yeah.
That was
To the sewer ban?
yeah, because right now it's a carryover of 5 years, and that was okay
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Right.
But we have got commitment with the Fair Share.
And Megan, can I interject? This is Guy, and thank you for taking the call. Jack, this might be
Sure.
more a question for you. How do you think Fair Share would react?
Talk louder, so he don't worry.
I'm sorry. My question's for Jack, I think. What would Fair Share say if we need more time for the lifting of the sewer ban? Because the units are not going to get built within 3 years.
Well, and they understand that. And there's a look back in 5 years. I think Brendan's idea is a good one if it's feasible. If not, I think Fair Share would be okay with it as long as we were acting in good faith and making progress. But obviously, it would be better if we could get the ban lifted in 3 years rather than
And
5.
this may not be a legal suggestion, Megan. Do you think would make every effort to complete within 3 years, but maximum 5, and then therefore that might be language that Fair Share might
That shows
accept?
even better faith.
Did you get that, Megan?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I
So
do
they're not
too.
obligated to do it within 3 years, but they would have to, use their best efforts to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah. Excellent.
God, you have any more issues for Megan when we have her?
Just quickly, it's a bit of a moving target. What are we doing? Like the last time, I think we were 0, 0, 0, 9, 0, or something like that. It was a compound of 9.7 over 5 years. Is that what we're staying with?
What we required last time was just a 5-year binding rate plan, and the proposal that we got was for the 3-year freeze, and then on that 4th year, I think compounded, like you said, the 9 or 9.7%, whatever it was. So this time we are requiring a 2-year freeze, and then over the following 3 years, there cannot be an aggregate of an increase over 9%.
Similar then, in terms,
Yeah, very, very similar. This time we're requiring the rate freeze, whereas last time we did not.
and how are we handling the 2019 increase? Because it's an unknown at this point. That's what makes this difficult. I know.
Well, what we inserted was the 2018 ordinance that was passed, that I believe is about a 10% increase from 2017. Is that
There's slightly
right?
more than that, I think.
Yeah, I think what we were going to do was we were going to freeze the rates at the 2018 rate. That's what we had decided here.
Right, the freeze will be based on the 2018 rate.
Right. And that's the
And
question.
if you know what I don't know if the 2019 rates have been established yet,
No.
but once the township knows what that is, that can be something that gets, brought into the public education campaign. It doesn't have to be inserted in the RFP at this time if you don't have that information, but once it comes out, then that's something I think the voters would want to know.
Right, and I'll speak to the committee now. The reason I'm saying that is it depends, my own opinion depends on how much that rate increase is. I think
Right.
if it were, it could be anything from whatever, but when we discussed it in general, the number that was put forth was over the next 4 years, rates would be a cumulative 80%. So the question was, how did we want to divide that up? 20, or some other breakdown? So if we were to go with 20, which probably would be my advice, I would say maybe we revert to 10%, revert back to 10% of the rate. The reason is because I was going back over some of my notes, and I think the way it worked for the winning bidder the last time was over the next rate increase that they would do with the state, not with Long Hill, but with the state. All rates under their rate base would follow the Lakewood rate, which is lower than Long Hill's. So we might actually see a decrease regardless of what we put into the bid specs. And I don't want to scare off other potential bidders by making it onerous to the point where we only get one bid or no bids for that matter. So the winning bidder last time was NJ American Water. That's not a secret. And Jack, maybe you remember this, but I think what was said during the campaign is they would they would make rates equal the Lakewood rate. And I think they have 700,000 customers, so they would lower the rate to meet that rate. My point is, I don't want to scare any bidders away.
Right, but so what would you do then?
Well, whatever, I can't answer the question, what would I do? If we were going to raise rates 5%, I would say just revert to the 18 rate. If we're going to raise rates 30%, I don't know that I want to revert back to the 18 rate because I don't want to scare away bidders.
But the 18 rate already was a substantial increase,
No doubt.
right? And
No
so, I think we have to put something in here. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
For me, the 2018, it's concrete. I know.
Yep, yeah.
I know what the figure is, and it seems to me that, given the size of the increase that we had in 2018, it shouldn't scare away any bidders. It's a bigger rate base.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm just pointing that out.
Okay.
When I was going back through some notes, I realized that there was some other language in it. And, ideally, we get more than one bid.
Right.
But-
So are you telling Megan to stay with,
That's up to the-
stay with 2018? I'm just trying to get it clear.
That would be I would say 2018. I don't know about everybody
Yeah,
else.
I think my opinion is at this point in time, we have to.
What was it, 2000? I don't remember what it was.
It was 20-something%, if I
Okay,
recall correctly.
yeah, at least we know it's a known number, so I agree
Yeah.
with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, did you get that, Megan?
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Given the information we have right now, having them base their increases or decreases on the 2018 rates is really all we can do right now.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had.
Bruce?
What is the language that we're using for the part of town that's not sewered?
So for the part of town that's not sewered, the requirement is pretty much the same as it was 2 years ago, and that is that within 5 years after closing, the buyer would have to connect at least 95% of the existing properties as of the closing date. So I think right now you're at about 88% of the town that's connected. So they would have to make whatever capital improvements and increase the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant to accommodate that extra 7%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Nancy, you had a question for her?
Megan, we had discussed when this document would become subject to Oprah. Could you touch on that?
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I know that earlier there was a request from the public for a copy of the draft RFP, and we advised the township administrator not to release the draft. One, we've never seen a client do that before. It's confusing if there's a draft floating around and then a couple of weeks later the final version comes out. But more significantly, if it kind of opens up the township to a potential challenge from one of the bidders down the line that might say, well, one of the other bidders might have had access to information before the rest of the vendor community did, and so it just, it's a little bit messy if you do that. And there's also, once we issue the RFP, which will likely be within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the potential companies as well as anyone from the public has the opportunity to review it and ask any questions, comment on it then. If there's something that's so significant that the committee wants to change something, we would issue an addenda, and we can do it formally that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions
Sure.
for Megan? No? No, we're not open that to the public today. Just,
If you're sending this out in 2 to 3 weeks, we don't get an opinion or a comment
can talk to
on the
us.
RFP.
you can talk to us. This isn't a final draft. So,
She just said it's going out in 2 to 3 weeks.
exactly, it's 21 days. We
And
obviously,
Attorney Pitchen said we'd have comments on the RFP.
yeah, you can comment on it.
But don't we have
I can't read it.
I know, but don't we have a public comment period?
Of course, not
Right.
tonight,
It
but
was
of
on
course.
that schedule about a month ago.
What was on
Sure.
the schedule?
I'll give it to you if you don't have it.
No.
Megan, can you address what we talked about after this is released to the public, about whether or not the document is amendable?
Yes. So once the final draft RFP is released to, once we formally advertise it in the newspaper, there are certain requirements that we have to meet under the law in order to advertise it. Once it's issued, there's a question and answer period that bidders, as anyone has the opportunity to submit questions to the township, and the township will review them and basically issue an addenda, which is what we did back in 2017 as well. We issued 2 addenda, and some things were changed and some things weren't, but all of the questions were addressed.
We're
So
talking
it's
about
not-
taxpayer input,
It's
not
like we
vendor
can't change
input.
any of the requirements.
Applies as well.
Mayor,
So you're going to issue it and then we get to comment on it?
I think we have a public...
Right now, we're not
Yes.
open to the public.
Yeah, we're-
We have more than enough time.
So you're going to send
No,
it
no, no,
out,
no, no,
we're
it's
going
not
to
how-
comment later, 2 to
That's,
3 weeks.
that's not how we play ball tonight. You're gonna sit down and you can talk when you're allowed to talk. Right now, we're talking to Megan on the phone, and afterwards,
$76,000 and get a consultant on the phone. It's a great deal. I wish I was a consultant and take calls on the phone. I had to be in the presence of my client.
well, she probably saved us 3.5 hours of billable time by being on the phone.
No, it won't. You'll get better input, Mr. Mayor.
Well, when she's billing from door to door, you'll see.
Yeah, we're getting taken advantage of then.
Well, we're not, 'cause she's on the phone, but thank you. All right.
It's not a way to do consulting
Any-
business. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions for Megan from the committee?
Not from me.
What about the public? No comments.
Bruce?
Great country.
Thank you.
Great country.
Megan, thank you very much for your time. We'll be talking to you soon.
Megan, you good?
I am, yes. So, Nancy, will you give me a call afterwards just to follow up, and then, if there are no further changes, then we will release the draft to the controller's office tomorrow, just so that we get their 30-day review period started and that it doesn't delay the rest of the schedule.
Okay, if I could just clarify with you, what we talked about earlier is after the comptroller has approved this, and then you've got the final RFB, if anyone, vendor, or if a taxpayer came up to the committee at a meeting and said, hey, I don't think that this part of the RFB is good for the township, and the whole committee agreed with them, or a majority of the committee agreed, an amendment could be made in that regard as well, correct?
Correct, yes. The committee is free to make any changes that it wants to. It doesn't have to be at the request of a vendor or the public. If they just decide that, there's some new information that came out and they need to change something, that's all permitted under this procurement.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll call,
Yeah. Megan, when's the drop dead date for the bid to be finalized and sent?
Well, we're working backwards, so the significant date is August 16th, and that's the last day that we have to submit the question to the county clerk's office in order to get the ballot question on for the referendum.
Right.
But there are a lot of things, this bid has to be out for at least 6 weeks. It has to be advertised for 6 weeks in a row. And then there's a bidder question and answer period, and there are site tours that have to take place. And then once the bids come in, which we have scheduled right now for the end of May, we need to evaluate them, and the township would have to pass an ordinance. Assuming we get a favorable bid and the township decides to move forward, then we'd have to finalize the contract with whoever the winning vendor is, and the township would have to issue an ordinance, which I believe would take about 3 meetings, because you need to introduce it, take public comment, and then adopt it at the second meeting or the third meeting. So we're already kind of running up to all of those deadlines. But I think as long as we issue it by mid-May, then we'll be in good shape.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
No problem.
I'll call you, follow up later.
Have a good night.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, and I do appreciate you accommodating the telephone participation. It's very much appreciated.
Good night.
Good night.
Megan.
Good night. Thank you.
All right. Any old or new business? Oh.
Hand down.
The phone fell for those who at the viewing audience at home.
For the record, Brendan was no help.
Okay. Any old or new business from my right down there? Brendan, Guy? No, for me. Bruce? Nope. All right, just a couple items. One, I got called from Rich's Auto down on Mountain Avenue. He had a question for us. Rich runs a charity called Kingdom Cars, which they basically take donated cars and they rehab them at cost. They don't make a profit off it. Then they donate them or find families that are in need of a car to get transportation or have kids and get back on their feet. The problem Rich had was the state DMV came down on him and basically said, you can't do this because you're not a car dealership and you're transferring title, even though there's no money exchanging hands. So he's in a quandary. We have a ordinance on the books that says you can't have a car lot in town. I mean, obviously you can sell a car, but you can't have like a used car lot per se. And we can't have a car dealership. However, on Rich's problem is, in theory, he has to be a car dealer in order to run this charity. So I spoke to Jack briefly yesterday on email, and the question is, we have 2 things we can do. One, we can change the ordinance, which would apply to everybody in town, to allow for a very limited use for a charitable use or no money changes, where there's not for profit, or he would have to get some kind of a variance for something or other.
You'd have to get a variance, use variance.
So the question is, what do we want to do? Do we want to at least propose changing the ordinance and narrowing it, adding a provision in there to make it a permitted use, a very limited, finite thing, or have him go in front of the zoning board to do this?
My opinion is we should look at structuring this for a very narrow use because he's trying to do this for a charitable endeavor, and having to pay for professionals and whatnot for a variance sort of is counter to that concept.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, I would concur.
And this was first brought up a few years ago. I think Jack remembers this. And I certainly,
2014.
we all want to support, a charitable type situation. My concern is, once you do that, that property for forever it doesn't matter if that current owner is no longer there, right? That property,
Would apply to everybody, not just him.
right.
Right.
So,
And then if it became a non-conforming use at some point in time in the future, it would go on to future property owners. It would run with the property.
exactly. And
Even although it's not a charity?
Well, it would still have to meet the parameters
Okay.
of the ordinance. So if the ordinance were repealed at some point in the future, then he could continue the use as a charitable car dealership, for lack of a better term. It would have to be carefully drawn, the ordinance, so that it
but
couldn't
this
be
would be
abused.
townwide, or this
No,
property?
it has to be
No,
townwide, applies to everybody.
Well, it wouldn't have to be townwide. The current prohibition is townwide, but there's no reason we couldn't limit this particular use to certain zones.
Zones of property.
Zones. You can't just do property, you're doing spot zoning.
Right. So it's going to apply to
So we could do
every
it to a zone, and you can make it very, very narrow in scope.
What do you, I apologize, Jack, you might know as well. What zone is this?
I forget, I looked it up.
You know
and I
where it is,
forget.
Dennis, right? Rich's Automotive?
Sorry, what's the address or what's?
It's right behind Ancona. I don't know what the address is.
On Mountain. It's on the east side, about 100 yards off of the corner.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Yeah, he's in the B.
It's a business.
5. It's a business zone.
It's a business zone, yeah. I forget which
He's
one.
already got he's already doing an auto dealership, which is not a permitted use. I'm sorry, a repair shop, which is not a permitted use. All right.
So, right, so that's a non-conforming use he's already got there. Then the question arises, if he expands the use even with a legal use, is he intensifying the use?
Jack, from your perspective, is this something that a path that we want to go down? I mean, we do want to obviously support as much as we can, but are there ramifications such that?
It's tricky, and now that I hear he's got an existing non-conforming use, which in lay terms is a grandfathered use, even if we allow this to happen, it may be considered an intensification of the non-conforming use because you're intensifying the use of the property. But we could certainly send it to the planning board. As I say, anything would have to be carefully drawn so it wasn't abused at other sites or this site.
Because all B1s now would permit this use.
So
Now, is he a 501c3?
yeah, I think.
That is a legitimate charity, from what he told me.
Yeah.
It's run through a church.
Yeah, he told us that he.
Well, so we could waive the fees. I mean, from my perspective, and I'm not looking at the fact of encouraging a charity, just from a legal perspective, we could waive the fees for him to go before the board. The question is, as Bruce said, would he have to hire, professionals to appear before the board?
I think your serious issue is the,
Go give him the microphone, Dennis. Thank you.
turn it up.
Oh. I'm curious. Is it on now? I hit the red light comes on, but it doesn't stay on. You might have to manually do it.
No, it's on.
It's on?
The red light's on anyway.
All right. Well, you can use one of the microphones
There
on
we
the
go,
table.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
I would suggest that in this particular case, you might need to give audience to the neighbors who have a right, in the case of a variance, to speak up and say whether they want or don't want this in their neighborhood. Proofs have to be given that this variance is in the public interest, and it gets a little bit sticky since the fundamental use of that building is already a non-conforming use. I need more counsel on this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, so herein therein lies the problem.
Right. So, I mean, Jack, were you suggesting that we refer this to the planning board and let them
Well,
discuss it, or?
Well, they may be able to come back and say, yeah, we can do this reasonably.
I mean, from a legal standpoint, the cleanest way would be to send them to the Board of Adjustment, because then we're not risking, abuse of any ordinance that's written, no matter how carefully it's written.
Plus, to Dennis's point about neighbors, the Ancona property is now listed as,
Non-conforming use.
well, no, I'm talking about the
Oh,
Ancona.
right.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, their
The
neighbor.
property next to
Next to it,
Ancona
right.
is designated for fair share.
Fair share housing.
So there would be housing there next to a non-conforming use, the intensification of a non-conforming use.
Because the effect on neighbors is the same regardless of whether it's for profit or not for profit.
Right.
It's still
Yeah.
cars parked there and things like that, so. But I understand your desire to help out somebody who's doing something noble.
Back to your possible, a suggestion, if we waive the fees and it went before the Board of Adjustment, they still have the cost of their own, unless they can find, it's a charity, maybe they can find somebody to do pro bono.
I can't speak for well, that may be.
Yeah. But that's the cleanest legal way to do it.
Cleanest legal way, and as I said, I'm not opposed to doing it the other way, just as long as you go into it with your eyes open.
Right.
But maybe send it to the planning board so they can discuss it, and then come back and say, we recommend, we not amend the ordinance and that they be required to get a variance, or maybe they can come up with a way to do it. But as I say, I'm worried about the fact that it's already a non-conforming use.
Yep.
He may not be able to do it anyway.
Right.
That's fine with me, and obviously, if they do have to make a representation to the planning board, I have no problem bringing it back to see if the fees can get waived, being if it's a 503C, that's gonna make the presentation. So, okay, then I guess we'll agree, we'll refer it to the zoning board to discuss.
The planning board?
Planning board,
Planning board
board?
to discuss,
Planning board,
yes.
yeah.
Okay,
It may ultimately have to go to the zoning
It
board.
may, yeah, but at least,
Just there's preliminary referrals to the planning board for their advice.
yep.
Is this coming as a referral from the
Township committee.
Yes.
committee, or you're not gonna ask him to apply, we're gonna actually refer?
I guess refer, yeah, because that'll just, it's another step in the process, he's gonna do it anyway, so might as well refer and just get the ball rolling.
Yeah, because they'll opine on it, right, the
Can you
planning
ask
board.
him to put something out? We don't have anything in writing.
I have Tommy delete his email, if that helps, I don't know if that, we need something from Rich? Yeah, I can email him, I'll email him, and I guess I'll talk to you tomorrow about what he needs from us. Oh, yeah. All right, next is going back to I thought of this the other day about the lights in the Gillette train station. I remember we were getting another bid for solar lights, and I've come thinking about it more. The last time we talked, the solar lights are more expensive anyway. That's what it sounded like, and I'm not sure they're gonna, I'm all for green energy, but I don't think they're gonna work as well being in the northeast climate, especially in the winter, because they're not gonna absorb as much light, especially when it's needed around 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I was just asking, do the rest of you wanna move forward with at least seeing if those numbers that we had originally, to put like the 3 or 4 lights up there, maybe even lower from 20 feet to 15 feet, as Nancy suggested, to dim the surrounding area, if that's something you wanna look towards doing again?
I would support doing
I
that.
think our last meeting, we tasked the administrator to put together a solution and bring that back to us that had something with the capability for the lights to be turned off.
Fair enough.
So I think, we let Nancy run with it and then have her come back to us when she's ready.
And I believe Mr. Gallo's DPW, does the offer still stand that you'll do the trenching work? Thank you, Al. I added it to the to-do list. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll scrap the solar lights, and obviously for cost effectiveness, and we'll have Nancy look into that in a week or so. And I think that's it for old and new business. Anybody else has anything? All right, announcements, and we have plenty of them. Mark your calendars. The annual Easter egg hunt, Saturday, April 13th. Rain date, April 20th. It's at 10 a.m. right here at Cantor Park. It's a fun day for all the kids. Following busy weekend, Sterling Street Fair. Actually, before we get to the street fair, you can go to the Easter egg hunt in the afternoon. Then the parents can go out and get your laugh on at the Millington Fire Company's, what is it, third or fourth? Fourth annual comedy show.
Tradition.
Which is a tradition now. Fourth annual comedy show at Millington Fire Company starts at 6:30. You can go through their Facebook page for more information. It's $35 in advance, $40 at the door, and that's to obviously benefit the Millington Fire Department. Then after that, if you're still feeling good, you can come out to the Sterling Street Fair on Sunday, April 14th, and Dennis will guarantee good weather again. So it's a good time. What?
Brief announcement while you're on that subject.
On the street fair, sure.
The Deadline for candidates to file for the primary election is Monday, April 1. If you are a candidate or intend to become a candidate and would like a booth at the street fair, get in touch with me and we'll try to sneak you in during those last 2 weeks.
And how does a person find you, Dennis? How do they find you?
How do they find me?
Yeah, what do you think?
Knock
Say
on my
Beetlejuice
door,
3 times and you
my
show up?
phone. I've got
Okay.
an email, everyone knows my email. If not, call the office and they'll give it to you.
Okay, fine. If you need, yes, if you're a candidate, want to be at table, contact Dennis. We're more than happy to accommodate you. Next, the Morris County Prosecutor's Office is doing a presentation on March 28th at 6:30 up in Randolph. It is called Juvenile Justice 21/12 Program, Internet and Online Safety Program, which is probably good if you have younger kids, especially in the middle school. It's at Randolph Middle School, March 28th, 6:30 p.m. Next, an event everybody's been kind of waiting for. It's the Elks Veteran Service Annex Open House. For those of you who don't know, the Elks Club took over the old American Legion building, and they doing a lot of work down there, renovating it. They put a new roof on, and they're going to officially open it on Saturday, April 27th. They're having an open house from 12 to 3, and the purpose of this is a lot of it's they're going to collect furniture and other needs for veterans, and they can distribute it out of that location. So it's almost like a warehouse or storehouse or place they can use to help the veterans get back on their feet and provide them with some services and or goods they might need. So please come by and support them. May 11th, Community Shred Day. It's a very popular day. It's at the library from 10 to 2. There's different pricing options. It's sponsored by the Friends of the Library, so if you need anything shredded, please wait and do it there. And another big event we talked about earlier, Doink the Clown will not be there. He'll be wrestling King Kong Bundy in heaven. However, the pro wrestling event is sponsored at the Long Hill Community Center, April 6th. Doors open at 6:30. It is sponsored by the Berners Chamber of Commerce and our favorite Police Benevolence Association. Chief Farrell, when's the fishing derby?
I actually have the.
Oh, you do?
Have that, yeah.
Brendan will tell you about another sponsored event by our PBA.
Yep, it's the fishing derby is going to be held on April 20th. It will be. It'll start at 8 o'clock and go on until 1 p.m. It's open to all Long Hill children, and there will be free T-shirts to all anglers, as well as many prizes to be won, and refreshments will be provided by local businesses.
And finally, tomorrow is one of my favorite days of the year. It is Major League Baseball opening day. So, actually, yeah, so tomorrow, tune in, opening day. Then they'll be off Thursday.
Supposed to make an announcement about garbage in Zone 3?
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Garbage and bulk pickup in Zone 3 was delayed today just for the Chestnut Run development and Delaware, it started with a D. Delaware Avenue, there was I believe a truck broke down. In any event, it will be finished tomorrow, so just leave your stuff out or bring it back in and put it back out tomorrow.
Oh, and the last thing is a user at home asked me a question. There was something posted online. I don't know if anybody has an answer to this. Maybe Mrs. Jeans might even know. She's here. The county posted something that they're giving away saplings, like foot-high trees, at different locations around the county, except our town wasn't included on the list. So the people wanted to know if can residents from Long Hill still go, even though they're not doing it in our town? Mrs. Jeans?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, luckily we have Susan Jeans from the Shade Tree Commission, and Mrs. Jeans said there are different locations. I believe this is posted on Facebook and the Morris County website. The county is giving out, it said, residents will receive 5 1 to 2 foot tall bare root tree seedlings in a bundle. So if people want to go get free trees to plant in their yard or wherever, check the county website. There are different locations. Chatham Township has one close to us, Madison, Harding Township. They're April 27th, April 28th. So if you want trees, you can go take a look at them over there. And thank you, Mr. Jeans. Is there anything else I missed on that, Ms. Jeans?
No, that sounds great.
Thank you. All right. Our first customer, Mr. Renowitz. 3 minutes, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Charles Renowitz, Millington. 3 of you voted to put the sewer wastewater treatment plant up for sale. 1 of you abstained, and the individuals here tonight said no. Let me tell you, tonight's performance with our consultant for $76,000 on the phone and all the promises made that we're going to have input to the RFB is not looking in your favor for the taxpayers to vote in favor of the sale. You're not doing a very good job, unfortunately. Your attorney has promised input on the RFB. Based on the Oprah request from our $76,000 consultant, I'll read from you. February 13th, 2019, we're going to have a township committee meeting, public meeting, to discuss the RFB requirements. What's today? March 27th. I'm still waiting for that meeting from February 13th. So if you think you're going to get a lot of people that are going to vote for this, when you haven't done your homework, for example, if we want to increase the value of the bid, I suggested twice to you to not increase the sewer lines, to put a minimum bid in. That has not been done. So we're going to get comments. You're going to send the draft to the controller's office without any public input. This is like me going before Judge Hubner and have to present my views that Attorney Pigeon can attest to. This is not the way to get public support for the sewer sale. I'm tired of beating my head against the wall. I'm getting a headache, be quite honest with you, and I'm sick and tired of it. Why do I have to make an amendment to the RFB to get the value we need for our sewer plant? And let me tell you, freezing the discount on the seniors, that was $15 that was going to be given. We're talking now about freezing rates. She said the discount. The discount's $15. My bill was $847. $15 doesn't do anything for me. So why is the RFB going to the state without taxpayer input, Mr. Dorsey?
Are you done?
No, I'm not done.
Well, finish. I'm not interrupting. You have 30 seconds.
What changes have been made to the RFP to increase the probability of the value of our plant? That's question 2, Mayor.
Any other questions?
When will the taxpayers and the public see the RFP? That's question 3. Yours, Mayor.
You done?
For now.
Well, you only get you got 2 seconds left.
You can have that.
Thank you. Oh, you yielded to the chair? Okay, first question is, well, first you said that there was no public meeting in February. There was. We had 2 public meetings in February, and they weren't public hearings, they were public meetings, and that's what your thing says.
No, this is what it says.
Whatever you tell me, so you don't need to come up, but I believe you.
I want to show you.
Thank you.
I had Oprah that, by the way.
Were you looking? Public meeting, discuss RFB requirements. Okay, and we did. There was a public meeting and discussed RFB
We had a
requirements.
public meeting, we didn't discuss the requirements, there's nothing to look at.
Yeah. What? We
There's
did.
nothing to look at.
Okay, next question is, when's the RFB? You said that, why is the RFB going to the state without public input? Megan, I believe, answered that question is, there will be public input because there's always chance to amend it if necessary. So clearly there's going to be a hearing where the public can come in and make comments when the final draft is prepared. And obviously, if we have 200 people saying we don't want something, clearly we're going to have to discuss that and possibly change or alter the RFB. And I believe Megan, unless I'm wrong, that's what Megan did say. The last question is, when will it be available to look at?
No, the last question was, what changes have been made to the RFB to increase the chances of increasing the value of our plant?
Well, I believe, I don't know if it's the RFB, but the fact that since 2016, there's been work that's been done to the sewer that would have had to been done anyway, such as the lining. Mr. Gallos, you can ask. I know they got a new filtration system or different lighting, correct, Al? So there has been improvements made as we go along because we have to make them that weren't done previously. And obviously, as we discussed last meeting, some of these pump stations need to get improved, and we're in the process of doing that. We're moving forward as if this is not going to sell. So let's say, for example,
Say that again?
I said we are moving. We can't assume it's going to sell. So we still have to keep moving forward. We can't wait. So, for example, last meeting, and I know you were here, or at least you saw the meeting, we were discussed improving the pump stations, would have to, again, I think it's like 200,000 or 300,000, is that what it was? And we're moving forward with that project too. So again, those are items that, for example, say the Myersville pump station's fixed by the time this thing goes to bid, that's one less thing they have to worry about. So there are things, and more lining of the pipes is in the process too. Bruce, is there anything else that we're doing? You know,
The sand filters.
the sand filters, yeah, there's,
Sand filters are the biggie.
the sand filters are the biggie and they're already done.
Phosphorus?
No, they're not.
Oh.
You doing phosphorus?
No. So the sand, they're changing the sand filters to chemical filters, and that's a major undertaking that is currently being engineered. And that should be finished. I don't know. What do you think? By the end of the year, sometime?
No, actually, the new date for the completion of all the work is the end of 2020.
So, we pushed it
It's
out.
delayed a little bit because of the DEP. They're trying to speed it up a little bit more.
Okay.
So
So,
that everything would be, all the work would be finished. This is the $7.2 million
Right.
that you bonded for
Right.
last year. So our goal is to have all the work finished, assuming the referendum passes and we have a buyer. The goal is for all the work to be finished by the time we close, because it just makes it easier.
Right.
and then you still have the soft costs, such as the engineering costs and the permitting costs, which they would have had to pay anyway, so you don't really see it, but if you need a permit from the DEP, that's already been done. So it's another thing that they don't have to go out and get, which they would have normally. And
Well,
And the
if I-
minimum
if-
bid, we put a minimum bid in this time?
that I don't know, ask.
I think, no, there's no minimum bid.
No.
I mean, the thing was that you were kind enough to give us your suggestions, Chuck, but...
Yeah.
And
You
we-
ignored them.
Well, no, we thought about them, but we decided not,
Yeah, it's not
to
worth
move
it,
ahead
right?
with them. That's different from ignoring them.
No, not quite.
Okay, I think I covered all your questions, did I not?
Well, I don't think so, but
I
my
answered
time's
them.
up.
Yes, it is.
You got to do a better job if you want to sell this plant. I'm sorry to give you bad news, okay? It's not going well. And all the people that are watching this are saying the same thing. You got to get public input into this. Come on.
Thank
You
you.
failed once.
Next. I have a new face. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, not so new. I feel like I'm seeing very familiar faces from last night.
Oh, I wasn't there
I was
last-
here last night.
Oh, you have to say your name and...
Karen Miletta, 23 Lackawanna Boulevard, Gillette.
Thank you.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Meleta.
Thank you.
I'm surprised to see that so many people who sit on the planning committee also sit on the township committee. I'm not sure that that's unusual, but it seems a little odd to me.
No, actually, that's very
By
usual.
statute.
It's statutory, is that
One
right?
member of the township committee plus the mayor.
Plus the mayor, so it's
Two.
it's
Or the mayor's
it's
We're the
very...
mayor's designee,
Right.
so
Yep.
that's why Mr. Marengolo's there.
Okay. So the planning committee last night approved a resolution to conduct a study to redevelop the property on Valley Road from Lackawanna Boulevard to Mountain Avenue and then a little further north up on Mountain Avenue. Last night they stated that the cost of that study is estimated at $18,000. I understand, or what was said at that meeting last night, that the request to do that study came from that committee, this committee. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you please explain to me, I have a series of questions, and I would prefer to be answered by someone who does not sit on both committees. Can you please explain why you requested the study? Specifically, what prompted it? Who requested that property be considered for redevelopment, especially considering that there are already 4 other sites that are on the docket for redevelopment? And also, why would you possibly consider the demolishing of single-family residences for redevelopment?
Well, do you have any more questions? I'm going to get them all before
Well,
you...
that's,
I mean, I could just say that these questions were asked and answered last night, so
nobody asked. All we were told was that the request came from this committee.
Exactly.
And I'm
That's-
asking what prompted this committee to seek that study. A little different. Because the answer to those questions last night was that you all made that request.
Well-
So now I want to know specifically and understand how it came about that you would want to pursue that location.
Well, well, you probably don't know. I can't vote or discuss any of that because Elite Properties does work with my law firm. So I don't do work with Elite Properties. I don't have a relationship with them, but I have to recuse myself from that. But Mr. Marengolo could probably answer all your questions, I believe. But you don't want to hear from him because he's on both committees. I can't. I don't know the answer. And if Guy answers, it's going to be 45-minute explanation. So.
Guy, I would love a thorough, honest
don't do that.
explanation.
It'll
Yes,
be long,
Guy,
but maybe not
please
thorough.
go ahead. I would appreciate
Well,
it.
I'll pitch in
Because
the questions. The
I'm
first-
representing here several dozen families on Lackawanna Boulevard who want to understand how this possibly, conceivably could be happening.
Okay, so the first question is, we'll start, who requested the use of those properties, or who proposed
Are
that?
you gonna hold the light to my eye? My eyes? Who requested?
Yes,
That it be put to consideration.
Well,
I believe it's Elite Properties.
yes, but
I could be wrong.
understand, the reason why any property in town is being considered is
Oh, yeah.
because we have to
Hold on, I
provide.
will recuse myself for this because I don't need...
Yeah, we're going to get into it.
Yeah, if you're gonna get into it, I gotta leave. So, good day, and good luck with Guy.
I'm glad I got you off early.
No, I'm coming back, don't worry.
Okay.
The reason why any properties in town are being considered for development is because we have to comply with fair share housing, and Jack, at any point, if I misspeak. So this was not one of the locations that was considered originally. I think you referenced 4, and in fact, those 4 still are being, they've been zoned appropriately.
And they would meet our requirements, would they not?
They would. Unfortunately, a property that Elite was considering putting residential on, which is Main and Valley, even though that is still zoned to accommodate the fair share.
But just to...
No, you're not allowed to speak.
No, I think you're missing the point here that the...
No, he's answering the question very well. Would you let him continue,
this is
please?
an extension of the redevelopment zone.
Yes.
Just wanted to point
All
that
right.
out.
All right.
That was all.
Can I speak now?
Speak.
So, unfortunately, the cost may be prohibitive to put the residential on Main and Valley. So we are looking for another location, possibly. This is being considered as part of the redevelopment zone, which is already on Main and Valley,
Correct.
Yes.
to accommodate the housing, to make it economically feasible. The study doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means that the findings of that study would be presented to this committee,
Correct.
and we would decide whether we think it's appropriate or not. We can't say it's, which is, I know what you want to hear, an inappropriate site until we get input from experts on this matter, which we're not.
So Elite Properties is the one who's seeking to develop the Valley Road between Lackawanna Boulevard and Mountain? Is that my understanding?
Valley Road and Maine. If I said Mountain, I meant Maine. Valley
So
Road and Maine.
I'm speaking specifically about the study that's going to be done.
Well, the new law.
Okay.
The study that's going to be done on the property from Valley Road between Lackawanna Boulevard and Mountain Avenue.
It's elite, yes.
The answer is yes, it's
Yes.
Elite.
It's
And-
Elite.
And it's a direct result of us designating them as our redeveloper.
So is there a link between Elite's willingness and ability to develop the property on Valley Road and Maine and the potential property on Valley Road between Lackawanna and Mountain?
Yes.
Are those going to be tied together?
That's a
So in
legal
order
question.
to get him to develop, Valley and Maine, you have to give him something else for it to be economically viable for him to develop Valley and Maine.
And to provide affordable housing units, which is part of our fair share settlement.
And
I
is
think
that
that-
acceptable?
I think the other thing that we pointed out last night...
Is that an acceptable process
I
for
have
this
to,
committee?
I have to say that the other reason, as was pointed out last night, was that we have a willing buyer and a willing seller at those locations.
To answer your question, I don't know. That's why the study's being done.
And what are the terms of the study? What will be included in it? What factors are under consideration? Because what I understood, it was a redevelopment, a non-condemnation development study.
The
And what does-
criteria are on our webpage, or they should be very soon. And I believe they were also posted on. So they're on the website, and I believe they were also posted on Facebook as well. It's as we said yesterday, as we said last night, it's 2 pages of legalese, and so it's better something that's actually read and properly understood.
If I can, it's under the master plan link if you're looking for it.
I mean, nothing's happening in the immediate sense. That's why we commissioned this study to be done.
Legally, this is a process we have to go through in order to consider the properties.
Were the 4 sites that are already on the plan approved by the court as part of your redevelopment? They were.
As part of our affordable housing
Affordable housing.
program.
And did the court know or understand that one of those were in a flood zone?
The
And
court
yet they still approved it?
The court understood there may be an issue with the one property and that we may have to provide a substitute property.
So that was part of the condition, that you'd have to provide a substitute property?
Correct.
Well, I am very concerned about how this came about. I believe that those properties, for a long time coming, have been part of a form of, I'm going to use the term land banking, for the very purpose of eventually them being used for this purpose to be redeveloped.
Which properties have been land
The
banked?
ones all along Valley Road from Lackawanna to Mountain and north of Valley Road.
But
They're all owned by the same person, and they have been acquired over time, and they have been used because this town allows single-family homes to be rented without any form of limitation. They've been able to accumulate them over a period of time, and now we will change the character, potentially. I know you keep telling me you're going to do a study, but I know how these things go. We will change the character of this community all along that side of Valley Road, from Mountain all the way up to the mall. They're all single-family homes. They're all homes. And now we're going to change the character and rezone it, potentially. And the reason why you have a willing buyer, which just it makes it sound like it just so happened to happen, but it's been long planned. And for the reason that we allow people to rent homes without any restrictions, single-family homes.
We
Which is
cannot
something
legally prevent people from renting their homes.
No,
And that was
no,
my
that's
question,
not.
Jack.
Many towns set restrictions, time periods in which to limit the amount of time that you can.
Not New Jersey.
Yeah. And Jack, that
Homeowners
was
associations may, but
my-
towns cannot.
my question to you was there anything improper or illegal about that behaviour? And I believe the answer is no.
No, as I said, there's towns in New Jersey cannot restrict property owners' ability to rent their property. And in fact, if you go before the board on an application for any kind of residential development, the board cannot impose a restriction or a condition limiting it to non-rental.
I'm just gonna finish with this statement. The people of Lackawanna Boulevard and Mountain Avenue are perplexed that you would even consider the destruction of single-family housing as part of this redevelopment. And that's what they are. They're single-family homes. They're lovely homes. People have lived in there and raised families for years. They now are owned by a single individual who rents them out, but nevertheless, they are what I would put into the category like my home was, a starter home that makes a community affordable, but it still maintains the character of the community. And the fact that when you saw that site, that you would even say, let's tear down 4 single-family homes and do a study, because that's going to be the potential result. We're wondering on Lackawanna Boulevard if you really have our best interests. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. If I could, the mayor's going to come back in, and I'll let him run the
Wait a
meeting.
minute, is this
Unless
related to
It's
the,
related to this, yeah.
no, Lee Mount?
Lee Mountain.
Now,
Oh, okay.
Nancy.
All right, leave him out for a second. Thank you, Nancy.
Charles Lorenowitz, Millington. I think the prior speaker gave a lot of input and a lot of questions of what went on here, why this property was put forward to go before the planning board.
Right, you know what, Chuck?
There's a
let me-
lot of, let me finish. You know, I come up here and I get 3 minutes. No offense, she gets 10, 15 minutes, and God bless her. I wish you'd honor me the same and let me speak.
What's your question, Chuck?
The question is, what's going on between Elite Properties and this committee, and they requested it because they need to make money so we can redevelop other issues. I raised the same issues before Judge Hebner. We're going to have the same issues at Tiffin with environmental concerns. I just got a copy of the report that was supposed to be submitted on November 18th, then March 5th. First, it got submitted on March 15th. We've got 5 foot of asbestos below the paving at Tiffin, where we're going to dig down and put foundations for 4-story apartments.
Is your
Now,
question
my
related-
question is, what is going on? Elite Properties comes and asks you, we need to develop properties and we need affordable housing. What other affordable housing options are you considering? And I've come before you and asked you other questions, and I, like the last speaker, wants the deputy mayor to respond. No one from last night. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well-
Deputy Mayor.
Well,
Deputy Mayor.
I'm not sure I understand your question. What is your question?
What the question is, what other properties are being considered for affordable housing? And just because Elite Properties comes forward and says, I need other space,
and
you
that's wrong.
accommodate them.
That's wrong. They
Hold
didn't
on,
say
Guy.
it. They didn't say that.
Mr. Mayor,
You are
Deputy
putting
Mayor.
words out there that are untrue.
Wait, questions go to the
Wait a minute,
Untrue.
the questions to the
Questions go to the chair,
mayor.
and
not-
the chair
Untrue, Chuck.
directs them
Untrue.
to the appropriate
So
person.
hold on.
You're out of order,
Please-
Mr.
no.
Marangelo. You're out of order.
What-
Go ahead.
I'm out of order.
No, you don't run the
You
meeting.
are out of order. Keep laughing, Bruce. Keep running. You're into this thing, and you're hip boots.
spewing.
All right.
You're just spewing anything.
Yeah, so are you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Answer the questions.
So I would like to answer the question because
No, I want
this
you
is
to answer the question.
We have designated Elite Properties as our redevelopment.
You're out of order.
We are the ones
Judge is out
asking
of
them to
order.
do this.
Dennis,
Chuck,
take it over.
please ask the question, and then I will direct it.
You got the
accordingly.
question.
I know I don't, actually.
Okay.
What is the question?
Here's the question. Elite Properties came forward to you and said, what can I do for affordable housing?
Wrong premise.
You,
Bruce, let him finish.
I'm done. I'm done, Bruce.
It's the wrong premise.
Run
They didn't
again.
say that.
Okay, the mayor. Come
All
back.
right, well then, please get the mayor back in.
Are you running again?
Please,
April
Chuck,
1st?
please.
They didn't say that.
Are you running again?
If you would
April
like
1st?
the answer, you have to phrase the
Running
question
April 1st.
properly.
Are you running April 1st?
You'll find out April 1st.
Thank God, you're not running.
All right. Susan, is your question related to Elite Partners
Not at all.
or
Okay,
not at
mayor
all?
can
All
come
right,
back.
would the mayor please come back into the room?
Save us.
And we can get somebody to control this meeting.
Oh.
All I heard was a quote from Animal House, and I did pick up on that.
No, that wasn't mine. That was from Justice for All.
Listen, you're out of order. Whatever, but okay. Mrs. Jeans, now I'm back.
Okay.
Mrs. Jeans isn't going to yell, are you, Mrs. Jeans?
No,
Thank you,
no.
Mrs. Jeans.
I'm here as a representative of the Shade Tree Commission, as you know. We have a crisis in town. Ash trees, all ash trees except for a few that have been treated, are dying. Did you know that we have over 300 just in our easements that are dying? And those are all problems for Al Gallo and his crew. But if we have 300 just in our easements, you can only imagine how many we have probably on private property. There could be thousands. Those problems belong to homeowners. Treatment is expensive and not 100% sure, but it's pretty good. Tree removal is very expensive. And it will leave many properties without the benefit of water-holding shade trees, not to mention shade prevention trees, and it'll leave dangerous, dead, brittle trees. We as a town are not protected by the hold harmless clauses in the shade tree protection because, as Matt had mentioned, we have not been able to get somebody to the core training, and the core training requires that members of the Shade Tree Commission are protected by our Take the Court class, but also a paid employee. And Shane Daly, bless her heart, has offered to do it, and I know Al has somebody that's going to try to take it. But that's next October. We have a long summer season involving storms that is coming up during that time. Nearly 10 years ago, nervous about government overreach, the Township Committee voted to not accept a tree ordinance that longtime CTE and resident David Welch and A.J. Batista wrote. It is similar to those in place in Morristown, Chatham, Summit, Berkeley Heights, Warren, Watchung, Basking Ridge, Bernardsville, just to name a few, have in place. In fact, David Welch helped write a number of those. This will hold up in court. We are the only township in our area that does not have such a legislation. For that reason, I believe that the Shade Tree Commission must reintroduce the tree ordinance of 2010, and it must be passed. Furthermore, we must hire John Linson or another CTE, certified tree expert, that's a CTE, to be in touch and available on a regular basis, perhaps one afternoon a week. This will cost us $300 a week. This can help us decide when and where to deal with our tree issues, including ash trees, and the monoculture problems along our streets, because we have many monoculture problems. A monoculture problem is that in the past, in the interests of clarity and uniformity, we would put an entire street of maples in, and then when a maple disease threatens, the entire street has problems, and we have those issues going on in a number of our communities. Both of these issues impact our infrastructure as well. With a CTE on board and a shade tree ordinance, we can begin to deal with some of our tree-related issues. Thank you.
So,
I have, Mr. Jean, if you want to give us a copy of that, or maybe,
I would be happy to.
Okay.
I will send it to each and every one of you, and I think you should consider it. It is incidentally a very mild version of the same ordinance that is beefed up in many of our neighboring communities. It's a very mild version, and the fact that we couldn't pass it is almost hilarious.
yeah, I was on the committee at that point, and it failed 3-2. I mean, I remember the vote. And the only reason I considered voting against it was because I thought it was too light.
Too weak. Yeah.
I mean, it's still permitted 3 live trees to be cut down per year. Any dead tree, of course, could be removed at any point, but with consultation with the town.
And I'd be happy to explain any of you and answer any of your questions on it, because it is not an onerous bill at all. It
Mr. Mayor,
allows
if I could-
every homeowner to take down 3 live, healthy trees, and they have to be above a 3-inch
certain
caliber.
width, right?
Above a 3-inch. So you could take down unlimited number of sapling junk you have in your side yard, and every house is losing all their ashes. So to not prevent people
well, the ash is
taking
considered
down-
dead, right? So it wouldn't matter.
the ashes are a dead, dying tree,
Okay, so that
yes.
wouldn't, okay, so it'd be off
Now,
the,
the only thing the ordinance does require is that you have somebody come in and certify that the tree you're taking down is in fact a dead, dying tree.
You're not against
I mean, you can't say, oh, well, it would look like dead, middle winter, didn't have a single leaf on it. You know. But-
No, that makes
but
sense.
aside from that, and if we have a CTE on staff, that addresses a good part of that problem.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask Susan a
ahead.
question. Now, David, I know, has moved out of state.
Right.
Would he be back in town? Because it was David,
AJ Batista was the other one.
what's that?
AJ Batista.
And AJ. Now,
not for $300.
no, but he's back in town. I mean, in terms of, what I would recommend is, because this is essentially a new committee, there's several new faces on this committee.
The tree committee.
No,
yours-
on this
Oh, our
committee.
committee, oh, yes, I wasn't here when that, yes.
It failed back then in 10 for various reasons. It wasn't as if the Township Committee didn't agree with all of the concerns that were brought forward. The concern was overreach, telling people what they can or own, what they can or can't do on private property. And the New Jersey Supreme Court, coincidentally, the night we voted on it, had ruled that very day that communities can in fact tell people, I mean, we have side yard setbacks, front yard, I mean, there's all sorts of things. So, I mean, there's no secret, I support the tree ordinance, but I don't know what the rest of the committee would do, so.
No, I'll send
if I
out a
could
copy.
suggest-
I'll send it out, and I would be happy to be available to discuss anything in it to answer the questions. But the things you have to bear in mind, we're only talking about live, healthy trees above a 3-inch caliber.
I've seen it in Chatham
So something that is
Township.
not in that ballpark is yours to worry about anyway.
Yeah.
But particularly if we're losing a huge number of our trees because of emerald ash issues, it behooves us to be aware of the trees that you have, and before you start making decisions about what to remove, you know what you have to already get rid of.
Well, I have a general question, maybe you or Al Gallo can answer this. Like tree services, do a lot of the tree service, I don't know the answer to this, have somebody that's like a tree core person? I'm sure they'll say they do, but
Not all of them,
No.
but certainly many of them do, and most of them know what type of tree you have.
I know what type of tree, but will they be able to sell, say I call whatever, Tealman up, I forget what they're called, Pine Valley.
Pine Valley.
Would they have somebody that's certified, they can say, look, this tree's dead, this tree's not?
We actually have arranged a relationship with Action Tree, which doesn't happen to be a Long Hill Township facility, but they have long roots to this township. And they're willing to be a resource for us as well.
Thank you, Mrs. James. No, bring that up. Obviously, we'll put it up and we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Any other members of the public wishing to make any comments? Mr. Praza? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.